to get your pencil and paper. Just get started warming up before we get into stuff. So, quiet time to let go. Getting a deep breath. Yeah, there's issues around us and things going on in the world. Let's just put them on pause just for a little bit. You can get back to them soon, I promise. I won't keep you too long, but for right now, just deep breath. Let all that go. I got the timer on. Yeah, notice how you're sitting. Try to be comfortable. How your chair is supporting you. How the floor is supporting you. Maybe you have a desk there where your paper is. You have your arms on it or your wrists or your elbows. Maybe they're leaning forward on it or just sitting up straight. Just to notice. Notice if it's comfortable. Notice if there's any tension in your hands or your wrists or your elbows or your shoulders. Yeah, just so you can be loose. Just relaxing that. Just letting go of some tension. Being comfortable. Putting up a little buffer zone around. Yeah, picking up the pencil. Hopefully that's a good feeling. It's your old friend. Maybe it feels comfortable in your hand. Should. Been drawing for so long now. Used to this whole exercise. So we start pencil down on paper, if you haven't already. Noticing that contact, where you make contact. That cosmogenic point. Even if you started drawing, every point you make creates a new world on that paper. That point goes in motion to make a line. Yeah, we can just enjoy following that. Just like notice that. It can be fun. Should be fun. No pressure here. Nothing we have to draw. Surprising ourselves with what comes out. Yeah, and then noticing that fascination. Trying to catch a glimpse of that. So we make a point and we pull it out into a line. Where's that coming from? Why did it go that direction? Is that because of the way we write? Do we intentionally make it go a different direction? How does that feel? Keep drawing lines, points and lines, watching something grow. Maybe if we're having fun, maybe we get a little curious about it. Maybe all of a sudden we see two lines and we think something should go in between or something should go across it. We just noticing that now. There's this kind of spontaneous discernment. It's a natural thing as we go to look at it, judge it. As we move the next line forward, maybe even unconsciously arrange it. Why do we move the next line the distance we did or the angle we did? Yeah, so let's just draw a little bit and notice those things. If it seems too tight, just jump to a new place. If it starts to feel frustrating, notice that. Just notice that. Say, why should this be that way? What is it I expect that's causing that? And maybe just scribble around a bit for yourself. Like some jazz singer might scat sing. Just let that pencil roll around. What a good group of people. Okay. You can keep going, keep drawing. I'm going to try to set up an exercise. I have some other stuff to go over, but yeah, what I really like is to have the parallel tracks going on. So we have things to draw and things to work on. Of course, you can just draw if you're comfortable doing your drawing practice, of course, continue. You can do that the entire class. You don't have to follow the exercises. Really, it's about being able to draw along with your attention on your drawing and your peripheral awareness. Maybe you hear my voice, some of the stuff kind of sinking in or not. But there it is. Then you have that track in the class. So yeah, some information track going in on the, I don't know what, intellectual wavelength. And the meantime, that pencil's working and yeah, the body's engaged and the fingers. So you have the visual and the tactile, and that maybe that you don't have time to reflect too much. Just let it roll. So yeah, there's a particular exercise I want to start on. I'm calling it the 3 shapes. So what you do is start with a shape. It could be a really simple shape. It could be a rectangle, anything that's easy to draw, or it can be more complicated, and you'll get a chance to do it a few times. So start the way you want. And yes, just simply draw the shape. And then within that shape, you want to repeat that shape at a size that's about between 1/3 and 1/2 of that, somewhere in that, somewhere 1/3 to 1/2, or maybe slightly bigger than 1/2 the size inside. And if it's an odd shape, you can just sort of take the diameter of it, or maybe if it's a rectangle, just choose one side, then you redraw it. So inside the shape, it's about half as big, and then draw it again outside the shape, twice as big. So you draw a shape, and then draw a shape inside of it, and then draw a shape outside of it. And the first time, we're going to really try to go half as big and then twice as big. You could say it a different way. Draw a shape, a bigger shape, and then draw a shape inside that about half the size, and a shape inside that about half again. I don't know, it's a really good way to explain it, but yeah, 3 nested shapes. Paying attention to the proportion.
Is it the same shape or different shapes?
Yeah,
or
you should,
either?
this exercise, try to make the same shape. Yeah, it doesn't have to be an exact duplicate, but yeah, roughly the same shape.
Is there one, the smaller within the big one, or?
Yeah, a big one, and then a smaller one, and then a smaller one, or a shape where there's one copy of it inside and one copy outside of it. However you want to think about it. All right, I'll show you a picture. Something like that. Okay. That would be my simple. You got one more. Let me pin that. Hang on, Lauren. I'm going to look at yours up close. Hold it up to the camera. That's okay. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's fine. It can be floating in there, but it can be touching the edge, so no problem.
Hey, John, can you hold it up again? I didn't see it. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, sorry.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Sharon, that's good. But I think maybe maybe the outside one is not quite big enough on. We're just, yeah, your outside shape probably could be, to be doubled, it could be a little bit bigger. So look at the distances. We're just going to practice with that. You want to show me, Pat? Yeah. Oh yeah, that looks good. Yeah, Julie, really good. Look like the bullseyes. Actually, you've anticipated the next. Yeah, good, Tracy. Awesome.
Can I ask a question? When you say to double the one outside,
Yeah.
at first I thought you meant just the same amount, or do you mean double the amount?
I meant the same amount, but the next exercise, the next one is to start to vary the distances. So
I'm okay. Thanks.
What?
hard to see, Michelle. Sorry. Hang on, let me pin it. The light is not good.
I know I didn't do it what you're asking for.
Okay.
Good job. Yeah.
But this is not like I don't have a ruler out for this. The gist of it is, first of all, trying to control the proportion a little bit. Let me see, Dan. They're hard for me to see in the small. Got so many people here. That's good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, the big one may be a little too big, but for that, try to make the distances even. But that satisfies the second one. Okay, so in the first one, I just wanted to start out making the spaces sort of even, but I guess I didn't do as great a job explaining that, which is why I have to teach it and explain it so I can figure out how to do it better. Okay, so the gist of it is that we start to pay attention to that space, and actually in all the differences of the way it got shown, there were a lot of ways that could be interpreted, so that's good. And the next part of the exercise is next to that shape, and Julie drew a bunch of them. That was fine. You can draw them all around, but start to vary those distances. So start to make the distance between the outer and the next layer in, less or more, and the same with the inner one. So we start to get.
You want the same shape as we did originally?
If you're comfortable drawing it, that's fine. If you want to try a new shape, you can.
Okay. So, wait a minute. I'm not sure what you mean by varying the distances.
Okay.
Where?
Good. Okay. So this one is sort of even right here.
Uh-huh.
And then see this one, the center one is tinier. And this distance between I guess I'll call them outer one is 1, middle one is 2, and center one is 3. So the distance in 1 and 2 is smaller than the distance between 2 and 3.
Okay.
Here's more even in there.
Well,
okay.
I sort of had that in the first place. I
Okay.
guess.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be natural.
Like that.
Yeah. Good. But
Can you see
that's
it?
I just see one example there. Is there more? Did you draw more
Yeah,
than once?
it is just the one.
Okay. Yeah. So
It's
draw
just
another
what I-
one.
Okay.
The idea is we start to draw a variety of them with different proportions. Maybe that would have been easier to say that from the beginning. Okay, but as we draw the 3 shapes with different proportions, varying the proportions, we start to look at them and read them and make comparisons. And this is going to go back to that wholeness exercise. But really we're looking for, by making lots of examples in a kind of more or less mechanical way, by deciding this will be small, this will be large, and not really thinking about what the end product is going to look like. Then when we go back and look at a bunch of them with some sensitivity to the wholeness, to the sensitivity of which shape really is a better mirror of the self, we'll get a sense of what proportions are working for us. We're gonna raise our sensitivity to the proportions in terms of this question that Christopher Alexander asks about wholeness. So for me, in the beginning, I'll just show those same 2. All right, so this one, for me, the one with that's more disproportionate, that's not quite as regular, seems to have more liveliness, seems to be a better mirror of the self for me. I can't exactly say why, but that's really the question, is why that's true, or not even to ever get a real answer about why it's true, but can we tune ourselves to that feeling? And can we apply that sensitivity to other ways that we draw? And can we understand our own response and use that as we continue to work? So when we draw a shape and we draw some other shape, eventually unconsciously through sort of muscle memory or habit, we will naturally vary proportions into that more whole realm, that more mirror of the self realm with our drawings. Okay. So I have I have a couple of announcements as you keep, hopefully you'll keep drawing.
So you're saying like that.
Oh, okay, let me look. This is good. Feedback is good. I'm happy to do this. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Do another one
Okay.
now. That one below, either one, do either one, whether they're touching on the left side or whether they're sort of floating inside each other, but change the scale of the ones inside, you know, like the middle one, make it either bigger or smaller, and then the center, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, you want them identical, but okay. I
Yeah.
was doing that second one as the response to
Okay.
variation of the first one. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it should be, try to be
Okay.
comfortable drawing, you know, 10 of them, 15 of them. This should be,
Okay.
it should be easy. Let me see, Pat. Sorry, I saw you holding it up. Yeah, cool. That's cool. All right. So yeah, on the bottom two, which one seems to be more of a mirror of the self? Which one seems to contain more wholeness for you? Can you point it out? I don't hear you, so point with your pencil. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, yeah. This is just stepping in the water here.
Were you surprised that I thought that one was more me than the other one?
I didn't get that far in the reflection.
Oh,
I was just
okay.
curious about it.
Okay, just curious.
But I think asking the question, because it doesn't often get asked. I'm looking, Michelle. Hold on. Put it up again. Let me see. Yeah, it's really light. That's the only problem. Okay, that's not bad. All right. So of the upper, yeah. Okay, I see him now. All right. And so, which one is it for you?
Okay. So we're like,
That one. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. All right. Yeah. I'm gonna look again for Lauren. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's cool. That's exactly right, Lauren. That's exactly right. Okay.
okay.
And which do you say is more of a mirror of yourself? Which contains more wholeness for you? That one. Okay.
That
cool.
one, I think.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let me look at Dan's. Oh yeah, that's a lot of them. Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. So we're just looking at proportions there and levels of scale there. All right.
Actually, I just changed my mind. Is that doable?
It's totally fine. It's just raising sensitivity to the whole issue at this point. Yeah, Dan, which one for you?
I think they all look good to me.
Okay, that's good too. Yeah, so we're just it's like we uncovered a new sensor we're calibrating in the beginning. We're just finding out that we can actually measure wholeness by our response, and we'll calibrate that against something like when you see something now, when you're out and about, if you ever get out and about again to a museum, or maybe you're online and you see a picture online, or maybe you're on a walk and there's a tree, and the ratio of trunk to branch to leaf like that is so amazing. You can see that the proportions of those distances is really something special. On this one, maybe it just strikes you, or maybe there's a building design or a fence, or you see a bowl in your house in a new way. And then just think about, yeah, this is really that lift that I'm getting from the design of this. And then try to use that, if you can remember, or sort of imprint that response to when you're looking at these again, and see which one, maybe none of them stimulated to that level, and maybe you'll draw more things. If you do a lot of drawing at some point, if you do a lot of art, you know, once in a while there's one comes along and you go, wow, I don't know why that works. It's really resonating. So we're looking at ways of going down into the levels and training ourselves to bring that out more, so it becomes more common in the work, and we have little tricks to sort of find it in ways that we work. And so looking at the levels of scale and the proportions of things is really, really important. Okay, so I'll say this. I had a phone call from my dealer, and if all stays on course and New York continues to get better, then the show will happen in mid-October. That's the
Oh,
plan.
wow.
Yeah, so all the work that's in
Yay.
the studio.
And this will be where?
It will be at 211 121st Street, East 121st Street, at the David Richard Gallery. So there'll be about 14 or 15 pieces. They were almost done in March when we got shut down, and the show was scheduled to open in April. So I am equal parts excited and terrified, as often happens when the shows get scheduled, because now there's all of a sudden there's a lot of work. And I plan to continue doing the classes. And so it's a good thing that we're getting a lot of feedback. Like what's actually happening now is going to have to happen more or less more, because I'll be able to prepare materials, but I don't know if I'll be able to prepare full hours. But on the other hand, I think we're at a point where we can do what we're doing now and have discussion. So I'm really saying I'm going to continue, but I'm looking to transition even more. But I think it'll be good for everyone. That's what we need to do as a group, I think, is to have more discussion about it. But I'll prepare exercises. There's still plenty of stuff. So anyway, and I don't know.
Congratulations in order.
I think so.
Re-congratulations.
Yeah.
Yay!
So
Yeah.
we'll it's going to happen. We're going to have photography in about 2 weeks already, so it'll move quickly, and there'll be press.
Yeah.
And so I'll be busy. That's all I'm saying. I'll be busy. So if I'm not as prepared or whatever material, but I still plan to. This is an amazing turnout, and I don't want to put this down at all. And there's still tons of stuff to go over and work on. So we'll continue. But yeah. I do think that we're at a point where looking at work and sharing work, and also we're at a point where we really need everybody's opinion starting to come in about it, because it's really gonna be a discussion at this point. We're gonna be guided by some of the things we learned in Drawing Your Own Path, and also some of Christopher Alexander. But what's gonna really guide us is in each individual experience, and we have 16 people here, so we have a huge variety of creative types and a huge number of avenues of creativity, and everybody will find out, thinks about creating and thinks about what they're making differently, and experiences ideas and experiences their own improvisation differently, and that's what we can really learn from. So, but I'll set up a context for each of these, and we'll see that come out. Okay. Yeah, at the end of last class, Wendy made some comments and raised some questions, and actually there was quite a discussion afterwards. We had sort of a bee hangout afterwards, went very, very well, but it got me thinking about a lot of what was going on. Yeah, one of the points was about dealing with frustration, which is good to go over again and say that if you're working with this and it becomes not fun, or you get some consternation, or you get some frustration about working with it, then first and foremost, be prepared to just kind of ease up relax and drop back into some of the simpler exercises. If you're working forward on some of these exercises and they seem too constricting or they don't seem to be producing results, we had all that drawing your own path options for practices. And I think going back to simple practices, getting centered, and being able to let go of goals will help. But we also discussed how that consternation can be instructive if you're comfortable enough to go forward and open that up. If you're grounded with your practice and you can move forward, there's often things to uncover. For me, it's always worked like therapy, and it was kind of free to be done. And it's also something that I'm comfortable to discuss. And I did mention it last time, and some people have emailed me about it. But if you want to get together, and if things are coming up in your drawing, or if you just want to look at some drawings, maybe not in class, but maybe also have a little more individual time, I will still make time for that. And there were questions about it because on my website there's a little scheduling section and such. But if you're in this class and you want to meet, then it's completely free. So I'll schedule a time. And I do think it sometimes helps because you can say what it is you think you want to do, or think you want to get out of the class, or where you think it's going, or maybe you don't know, which is also kind of comes up. I don't know what question I need to ask, or I'm interested in this. Where can it go? So that's all can be discussed. It's not therapy. I'm not really a therapist. I'm not a therapist, but I do look at a lot of drawings, and I do talk to a lot of people about what comes up in drawing and the meditation. So that's all available. Just let me know, and you can get me on Instagram or Facebook Messenger, or on the Drawing Your Path website. I think there's an email link if you want to use email. Okay. So, and Wendy also asked, like, what is the goal? Like, what is the end? I think maybe in reference to Christopher Alexander, but I thought about it in a general way. It would be, there's an immediate goal in learning and mastering 15 properties that are individual practice as far as the art production and the qualities that we bring into our art can improve. We can introduce many more resonant layers of consideration in the marks we make, and it's almost too much, really. But the proportions of colors and the levels of scale and the shapes, and it really gets me thinking about lots of things when I make work. So that is something that comes out of it. But ultimately, I think what he's pointing to is what lots and lots of contemplative traditions point to. But he points to, through design and through art making, which of course I think is a great interest of the group. This whole mirror of the self and wholeness is discussed not only in contemplative practices, but also in some scientific practices. And I had a discussion with Dan, and we've talked about this. I don't know if I talked about this last week, this movie Infinite Potential with David Bohm that's going around. David Bohm was a physicist who fell out of favor in the 50s because of his ties to the communism, though he wasn't anyway near that, but he got caught up in McCarthy. But he had a theory of wholeness, which is now getting more attention than it did. Some of these theories, for political reasons, were sort of pushed out anyway. So the discussion of wholeness has taken place on the scientific level and on the contemplative level. And I think that Chris Alexander, one of the goals is just to find a way to approach this, what these traditions are pointing to. And one thing to consider is the nature of consciousness, which gets a lot of discussion. And of course, I'm not going to solve that in the next 3 minutes, but if you look at the Advaita Vedanta tradition, then you see consciousness is a thing, the ground of all being, which is kind of what David Bohm says, that consciousness is the ground of all being. Some physics would argue that, but if you look into Buddhism in the strict sutra Buddhism, you'll find consciousness is just an epiphenomenon of the workings of the mind, which is also a theory in psychology and that sort of thing. And some computer science would like to think so as well. Consciousness can be simulated. This is a way to approach some of those bigger questions by looking at these properties and seeing where this creativity naturally arises. So that's sort of an outcome, a goal of it. But for me, Chris Alexander is really more path quality than goal driven. And when you go into meditation, you know that there are sort of goals like end of suffering or nirvana or heaven, this kind of thing, but they're sort of way out there and diffuse. And really the whole thing is that we sit and we get benefits from the practice. And maybe that's a little carrot and stick that guides us, or maybe it's really something that we get to at some point, the end of suffering. But I think, yeah, there's a path quality to Christopher Alexander that we just practice better. I would say that's the benefit that can come out of it. So I hope that helps a little bit. Okay. Now I'm going to, hopefully you're still drawing now. You can expand what you're drawing. If you're just still doing the shapes, you can start to do more improvisational work and vary your shapes and vary the shapes in the shapes, but paying attention to the proportions of the things you're drawing, the size of one to the size of the other, because we're really thinking about levels of scale and proportion tonight. And Chris Alexander would say that the little parts of the drawing are, you could call them decorative details, like especially on buildings, there's often decorative details. And he would like you to rethink that and really consider the ratio in scale and size of the smaller pieces to the larger pieces and the shapes in between, that spaces that are created in between those shapes as being themselves shapes, or centers as he calls them. And those being able to contribute just as much as the shapes themselves. So when you create those three shapes together, you're actually creating the outline and then the interior and then the outline and then the interior and the outline and the interior. So you're creating lots of layers in there. And when you make the inner shapes bigger, you shrink the shape in between. So you need to think about all those shapes and how they relate. And it's good to practice with a few and kind of see that for yourself. You don't have to believe, oh yeah, Julie, were you going to show one? No, okay. I saw some paper there. Yeah, so oh yeah, I'm going to show one. Okay, let me have a quick look. Okay, yeah, wait, put it up again. I just got it pinned. Okay, yeah, all right. So that's beautiful practice. That's great practice. I love that. Okay, so you're also getting shapes in between all those shapes. You see what's happening. And so the arrangement of that, I think, is quite interesting because I don't think any of them overlapped. Any of those overlap? No, one of them.
It was a mistake.
What's that? Sorry.
It was a mistake.
Oh, okay. It's always good to look at those. It's not like I say, it's not like an analysis. It's not like a therapy analysis. It's just to point out, did you think about this? Did you think, because oftentimes someone will see something or think about one aspect of what you do that you haven't considered, and that can open some doors for you. Or you can see a tendency in yourself, and if we can see a tendency in ourselves, we can recognize that it's not us, and it gives us another layer to kind of push away. Like we get rid of these layers of what's not us. Sometimes we can't see it. We're clinging to some tendency, and then by having someone point it out, we can let go of it. And that's always a good, useful thing. Okay, Sharon, let me have a look. Okay. Yes, good. Do some more. Do a lot more. I love those. Yeah, you got it. You got it. Okay. Well, Dan's got one. Gonna do them all. Okay, there's some more. That's cool. You got it right. Okay, vary the shape a little bit there, Dan. Okay, Ellen, you wanted to put one up? No. Okay, gonna look. This is like the drawing bee all of a sudden. Oh, look at that with the color. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, hold it up again. I want to see it again. Okay, but yeah, I can barely see the color. More contrast in the blue and green. Maybe that's just the camera, I think. But
yeah, the green is pretty light. So
I'll tell you. I'll tell you what could be fun to play with there if you want to do the color thing is think about the scale, changing the scale and the color at the same time. So say just as a simple example, smaller is darker and bigger is lighter kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
And so you can play two levels of scale at the same time.
yeah.
It's nice if it's similar. It can work, but you could vary those just as easily as you vary the whole shape. I think, yeah, and you could get a little more variety.
Yeah.
Maybe the big one could be even bigger and give you some more space in there. So cool, that one's good. I'm really loving what's happening here. Okay, so it's I'm gonna look at Pat's. Okay, the less I have to babble on. Okay, there we go. All right, Pat, that's cool. Now you got a composition for sure. I see you filled in that the center one up at the top, and then they're open, and then you have some more smaller ones inside there. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and I have light to dark and dark to light on some of them.
Yeah, that's really nice. And I like how one cuts in and over. That's cool.
Yeah,
Sometimes
they do.
Sometimes they occlude it, and sometimes they overlap it. So that's
That's
nice.
right. They do interlock, sort of.
Yeah, yeah, that's one of the properties, interlock. Okay, all right, Little Good Griffins. Yeah, cool. That's cool. Yeah, they're tight. There's some open ones. Yeah, not bad. So give it a look and decide which ones you're responding to, right? Which one do you feel like are pictures of the self for you? Which one is a mirror of your true self?
I almost like them all as a whole because they create this kind of undulating pattern. It was kind of fun.
That's cool. Okay. No problem. Yeah, compositions emerge. All right, I'm going to show you what Paul Clay had to say about this, just to give you a... Can you... what is happening? Here we go. Okay. All right, maybe you can see that. So... it's hard to manipulate. Yeah, so this is from a book of Paul Clay's called The Pedagogical Sketchbook. And it was a little teaching book that he made for his students there at the Bauhaus. And he's talking about proportion here. And he spends a lot of time in the beginning talking about divisional articulation, but basically pattern. So he's got the spacing here. The spacing he numbers 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Top to bottom, 1, 1, 1. The most primitive structural rhythm based on a repetition of the same unit, left to right or top to bottom. It looks like the Swiss guy would do something like this, I think. And then this figure, very primitive structural rhythm and double motion. And then he was also a musician. So here in figure 15, he talks about 1 plus 2, 1 plus 2, 1 plus 2. So he starts to get some variation, and then he says, yeah, 1 plus 2 is replaced by 3 plus 3 plus 3, which amounts to another repetition of the basic theme. So he's showing in all of these checkerboards and all these that you can sort of add up the divisions and get a rhythm. So in the very beginning, when we did double and then double again size, we could get a regular number pattern for the spacing. So if you were to take and measure the spacing amongst your shapes, what would be the number sets that you would get? Would they be regular or not? That's divisional articulation.
And this is Paul Clay?
Yes, Paul Clay. So he was kind of measuring this division, and he does it again on the diagonals. He went kind of on and on about this because he wanted to have, like Christopher Alexander, some kind of measurable way of, or some kind of way to measure composition. So he talks about this. Then he gets over here on the 7, and he talks about individual articulation. And he says, in contrast to structural units, individual or abstract numerical divisions cannot be reduced to 1, but must stop at proportions. And he gives 3 examples, 2 to 3 to 5, which is the beginning of the Fibonacci sequence, which is the sequence that comes out of the golden ratio, golden section. And he gives another one 7, 11, 13, 17, which is the prime numbers, which can't be reduced to ratios. And then he gives the golden section, the golden proportion, which is A to B equals B to A plus B. You can look that up easily. This is the golden section. And that's a irreducible ratio, and that's said to be present in, in Greek architecture and in the human body and sunflowers. This sort of ratio is a very natural thing. And this is a very close to wholeness. What comes out is that this divisional articulation, this regular repetition, makes patterns, which Paul Clay will go on to say they get reduced to these numbers, and it sort of reduces the interest in the work. And the individual articulation is kind of irreducible set of numbers, this irreducible ratios. And that's what we're kind of intuiting in these exercises. We're trying to intuit the ratios that we are most attracted to, or that most represent our true self, or that we see most wholeness in. We're trying to sort of intuit those ratios out, and they won't be regular according to our experts, that there'll be some sort of irreducible ratio. And I like the word he uses, individual, which has a beautiful double meaning for me. By being not dividable, which is individual, it doesn't reduce to this divisional articulation on the left. It doesn't reduce to the checkerboard or the set of numbers, but it's undividable. 2, 3, 5 is an undividable ratio. But also the word individual is what we call a person, a unique person. And when we can bring a work of art to the individual level, when we can bring it to, the proportions in a work of art to this irreducible ratios, then it starts to have a character. This is when we talk about looking for a mirror of ourselves. That's the character. The character is this irreducible ratio, this individual that's going to start to emerge. So when the ratios become individual, we should be able to see that. We should be able to see the individual in the work. That's the plan. Okay. This is cool. I got one more thing I want to show, which is a way of looking at levels of scale in terms of proportion. And I'm going to use a piece of computer code. So let me pull this up. Okay. All right. So this piece of computer code is called tree, and it doesn't matter if you can, I'm going to read it out. If you want to look, you can look. If you don't understand the code, that's okay. I'll try my best to explain it, but you also get to see it running, so you should understand it. Okay, so we're going to look at this. The first key variable is mouse X. We're going to look at the position of the mouse going left to right on the screen. That's going to be a number, and we're going to use that number to create an angle for our tree. So we're going to start with the trunk of the tree. The line here is the trunk of the tree. So we're going to draw a little stick line pointing up. That's going to be the trunk of the tree. And then we're going to draw 2 branches on the trunk of the tree, like a V at the top. It's going to form like what would look like the letter Y. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to call this function branch, and the function branch is going to create 2 branches. Oh, the environment is called processing, and the site is processing.org, and it's free. And this code is available if you download processing software just to fool around with it. In the example code, you'll find this tree program, and you can have a great time. And it's one of these programs that like everybody takes and modifies because it's really instructive and it's really simple. And it shows how simple bits of code can make complex things really easily. Okay, so we're going to take the branch and we're going to reduce it in this case to 2/3, 0.66. So we're going to take the length of the branch and we're going to take 2/3 of it. So that's the first level of scale, is going to be the branches are going to be 2/3 the trunk. And then we're going to rotate the branch by the angle, which is determined by where our mouse is. And we're going to draw a little branch. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw the trunk, and then we're going to draw a branch off to the side, and then we're going to draw a branch off to the other side. So we just repeat this code. We're just drawing 2 branches. I don't want to get too into it, but the very key point in this branch program, the most important point, is that in the program, little subprogram called branch, we call a subprogram called branch. So within the little subprogram branch, we call a program called branch. In other words, the program calls itself. And in programming terms, that's called recursion, that the program calls itself.
Okay, got it.
So if we draw the tree and we draw the 2 branches, and then each branch that we draw calls itself, then it draws 2 branches on the end of that. And then those 2 branches draw 2 branches, and those 2 branches draw 2 branches. And if you'll remember, one of the properties of centers that we talked about is that centers were recursive. Centers are made of centers, which are made of centers, which are made of centers. And so this is a way to visualize this recursion in this program. So we're going to call the program that's going to draw the trunk of the tree, and then it's going to draw 2 branches, and each of those 2 branches is going to draw branches, and each of the branches that they draw is going to draw branches, because the program calls itself, which is a really interesting property of programming, that it can continue to repeat over and over. All right, so I'm going to see how to, I'm going to run the program now. Here it is. Okay, oops. Can you guys see this? You see the trunk of the tree? It's got a white line in the center. Okay, so I'm going to move the mouse from the left side to the right side, and it's going to change the angle, and it'll begin to show you. So you see, you see from the trunk of the tree, there's a Y. So you see the first 3 lines, right where my cursor is the joint. That's the trunk, and this is where the Y forms. So one goes left and one goes right. And then if you look to the left, there's another trunk and another Y. And then you take any of those branches, and there's a trunk and a Y and a trunk and a Y and a trunk and a Y.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and it really and simply and elegantly, with about 8 or 10 lines of code, looks like a tree. But then if we continue our angle, so we don't have a nice sort of natural proportion, but we push it to 90 degrees, you'll see it starts to look more and more mechanical.
Oh, wow.
And then it becomes almost, and then back again.
What determines how many branches are drawn?
Right. Well, immediately what determines it is that we branch twice from each trunk. So each trunk calls. But what stops it is there's a piece of code that notices when the last branch is getting smaller than the screen size, when it's basically 2 pixels. We stop at 2 pixels. But you could draw infinitely small. We just don't have the pixel representation. And of course, people take it and they make the trunk thicker and they add color to it, and they play with the angles, because the angle of the left and right branch don't always have to be the same. But I'll show you a couple of quick variations that can be done. I added another. Okay, so here we branch. Okay, so we rotate by theta. That's one angle, and then we rotate by minus that angle. That's how we get the two branches. We go to the left, we rotate to the left, and we rotate to the right. That gives us two branches. But what if we add another branch? And this block of code is just the branch. We add another branch, but in this case, we rotate it by half theta. So we should get another branch that goes kind of in one direction, but sort of in the middle of that. So let's run that. And I think I have to switch. Yeah, let me switch over. Okay, and you're going to see the difference. Okay, oops. Okay, so can you see that now? Is it up? There's the trunk. Okay, so we just added one more branch. So you're going to see now, if you look at the Y portion, you see there's the 2, and then there's one more in there. There's actually three branches off the main trunk. But adding one more in all those multiples at the end, look how dense it becomes.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, there's one little extra branch at one tiny variation at the beginning creates tremendous complexity there toward the end. And also it kind of changes the shape because we go left, we get a little more density on the left and a little less density on the right. Just because we have one whole other sort of tree. But here already by the second step, you see there's a third one here and there's a third one there. So you do get density.
Right.
So these are all levels of scale. And in fact, in this case, the proportion is just 2/3, 2/3, 2/3, 2/3 all the way out, which is a regular proportion. But because the length varies downward, yeah, you do get those beautiful levels of scale. So Chris Alexander says that the proportion should be between 1/2 and 1/3. But the mistake that often gets made in designs of levels of scale is that people make the next step down either too small. They make it too small, that it becomes tiny little decorations. That in fact the inner shape should have a kind of significant portion, like he says, 1/3 to 1/2, but really maybe between 1/3 and 2/3 can be played with. And you can also think one of the properties was borders. You can think of sometimes of the distance between them as a border between the two shapes. It depends on what you're drawing. But you can have a way to create contrast or create a border by that distance in between two shapes. Okay, so that's the tree program. There's a site called openprocessing.org where fans of the processing language and also teachers, when I teach a class and I use processing, I create a classroom on that site, Open Processing it's called. But there's a whole kind of community of programmers there. And that's one of the things, if you want to see variations of that tree program, that's one that gets varied quite a bit. You can just search for the tree program there, and you'll be see hundreds of variations of that program and some really interesting ways that program can be used to make designs. And I think that illustrates levels of scale quite well. Okay, well, I didn't think I had prepared an hour's worth of stuff, but there we go. So yeah, I think the plan is just to kind of continue to look at variations and explorations of the properties sort of week by week as is comfortable. And I'm going to continue reading into Chris Alexander because I've discovered a section in the 4th book about color, and I want to make a good show of that one. Because he's it's kind of like what I was discussing there with Ellen, like the color proportions or color scales is equally important, but it's going to deserve its own time. So, and I don't know when that'll be up in the future, but for the moment, we're just going to kind of move through some of the variations, and hopefully, if you want to bring drawings to class that you've done, experiments that you think are particularly resonant or maybe not working and want to know how they could work better, we can look at that in terms of the 15 properties. And if you want to do readings as well, drawing your own path readings, that's also available. But yeah, let me know if you want to do that. We can set that up. Yeah, so does anybody want to share anything that's come up in the class? We can.
Hey, John, I did a drawing this before the class today, and I was experimenting with color scale. Maybe, I don't know whether it's best to show here or maybe I can post it online.
Okay, that's cool. And you're working with the yellows and the oranges.
Yeah, I'm wanting to create like a contrast, like blue and red color there. Yeah, but I think I think it's maybe it need a bit more experimentation.
Yeah, I see that. I see the contrast. We haven't really talked about the color contrast yet, but there is an example of levels of scale you can see from left to right as it's growing.
Mm.
Mm.
Do you have some tips for next experimentation? Okay.
I would say consider the shapes between the shapes and the shape relationship of the shape to the edge, because you create a very significant border there. But I know you could also some places the red circles are touching the border and some not. You could think about that a little bit.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say it's mostly try to strengthen the shapes between the shapes. I think that would work.
John, I'm just sort of a bit behind the 15 properties, so I'm sort of just jumping in when I can, so I've got a day off today. So I suppose I've been a half an hour late, so I don't know if I'm on the right track with the exercises and the shapes. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Yep.
Yeah, lots of shapes within shapes for sure. I would say, well, in some places there are smaller ones, but the exercise would be to look at like you have dots inside some of the circles and then in the relationship of that to the larger shape and just looking at those proportions and trying to ask yourself if you make more examples, or in this case, you could look at sections of it and say which are resonating for you, which are more like a likeness or a mirror of the self coming out. Which do you feel that more inside?
I'm
And
gonna
it's because I
try-
like taking notes as well. I sort of taking
Oh,
notes
yeah.
at the same time, so I don't know if that's adding to my level of distraction with feeling the drawing.
jumping in because I have to leave, but I had originally done the drawing on the page and then I did this superimposed over it, so I brought that back in, those lines from the early part
Right.
and the spaces in between.
Yeah.
So that was fun to do that. I stuck with the triangle all the way through.
So even in shading the spaces in between, you bring out positive space, but
Yes.
you also introduce the void as a property there.
Yeah, right.
You by just not leaving it blank, you call attention to it in a way. So I think that's, and you have that reflected in some of the centers of some of the triangles as well. So I think all those things are working together nicely.
Yeah, thanks. I have to leave. Good night, everybody.
Okay, good to see you, Pat.
Good to see you.
I was working in in 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh.
Oh, hang
Go
on. Let me just say. Okay, so we're at 9, and I'm going to hang out. So I'll be happy to look at all these and discuss. But I want to make let everybody know that sort of at the end of it, and how much I appreciate you being here, and how much I plan to stay with it. And
Yay.
yeah,
When
no, I
is-
mean,
When is your exhibit? What
Yeah.
date do you think?
I think the 21st of October. It's not 100%, but
Okay.
it's going to be kind of a rolling opening, depending on what we're allowed to do by that time.
Right.
Yeah.
But if people want to see it, I will make an effort to be there, or make a time. It might be by appointment still, but and if not,
yeah.
there'll be a lot of photography of it. So,
Okay.
cool. So yeah, if you want to meet, let me know. And if you have feedback, let me know. And I appreciate everybody being here, and I'll be hanging out, yeah, if we want to look at work. And thank you.
I gotta get back to the Yankee game.
Okay, go Yankees.
Gotta go. Yeah. See ya.
Wow.
soon.
Okay.